Okay, good day, everyone, and welcome to the Story of America. What's going on here? Still no sound on Facebook for some reason. Let me see what's going on here with the sound issue. Close this down. So there we go. Sound's working again. I don't know why it didn't have sound for that little intro that I made, but I had a little intro that I've been trying to work on some stuff here, but it didn't catch the sound from it, so I don't know what's going on with that. So before the show, I had some things I wanted to talk about. First, got to get rid of my dog because she keeps on coming here, wagging her tail and knocking all of everything. Go get in the bed, lay down. Okay, you lay down by my feet. Yeah, just be quiet. All right, so because this is a show, can't say any curse words. I mean, I could. It's my show. I can do whatever the hell I want. But I'm not going to, not this time. Though I certainly have more than enough reason to do so. But I want to just rant a little bit before we start the show, before Rhett joins us. If he even decides to show up this time. So let's talk a little bit about what is happening to our country. Let me fix this camera. So I got two monitors here. Sometimes I look at this screen, other times I look at this screen, and then I got all this junk. Well, it's not really junk. I got my water pitcher right here, so I can stay hydrated. I got medications over here, mountains upon mountains of medication, all these pills that I never take. Well, I take them, but not as regularly as I'm supposed to. I got all these vitamins. You know, most of these vitamins are expired, but vitamins don't actually expire. They just lose potency over time. And so these only expired by about a year. So they're still relatively perfectly fine as far as the potency that they have. But you know, got all these vitamins over here and diclofenac and medications everywhere. And so this is pretty much what I mentioned all this crap over here as it gets into the gist of what I have to talk about. So, for example, this 20 garbage bags, 13-gallon. Under Joe Biden's economy, $9.50. The inflation prices are so incredible. I posted on Facebook just a while ago. I went to the store and what did I buy? Well, I couldn't afford to get a 15-pound bag of dog food um, because bills are due, and they had rose the price of the Purina Beneful, which is what I get my dog when I'm not getting her food from Petco. Which the food from Petco I get her Taste of the Wild. That cost me about $50 a bag. It now costs $60 a bag, and that's for, I believe, if I remember correctly, uh, about a 20 pound or 25 pound bag. And Purina Beneful that I usually buy if I don't have the money to get her the Taste of the Wild, well, that normally comes up to about $15. Well, now it's $20 a bag. So I had to go with whatever this is, the Purina One. This is what size bag? Is this uh three 3 pound bag at all? Like 9.85, somewhere around there for that bag. My dog is a pretty big dog. I mean, she's not a Great Dane or anything like that, but she's a pretty big dog. That 3 pound bag of food, it's not going to cost. It's not going to do anything. I had to get her pet treats that she doesn't like to eat because they're out of the other ones, and all the other ones were too expensive. These pet treats still uh managed to cost me $5. Get a bag of sugar. Oh, that cost $3. A half gallon of milk costs more than a gallon of gasoline. The half gallon of milk cost me about $3.33. 1 pound of frozen meat is $5. Frozen meat, frozen. It's not like it's fresh. 1 pound of frozen meat is $5. You know, when you used to be able to go to the store and get the Chef Boyardee in the 4 pack, the cans. If I remember correctly, I used to go to the store and I used to buy it for $1. Now just to buy 1 can of the ravioli is $1.50. And then I said I wanted to get me some cookies, something sweet to eat. I like sweets. Well, what I've got, I had wound up getting fudge grams, which has been greatly reduced in size. It's $1.75, up from what it used to be just a few years ago. It was $1, then $1.50, now it's 1.75. And normally if I go to the store to get something sweet to eat, I usually get, Oreos, Chips Ahoy, but to get Oreos is $4. Chips Ahoy is $4, and they have made the sizes so much smaller. But I'm paying $4 for less. So I had to get the fudge grams, which, because I don't like the fudge grams anymore. Those are gonna last a long time, longer than what I typically get for my snacks. Then I said, well, I need to get paper towel. So I get 1 roll of paper towel, Bounty, Essentials, $1.75, somewhere around there. Normally I buy Scott's 12 rolls at a time, usually cost me $11. Can't afford it. It's got too expensive. I used to buy Cottonelle tissue paper. That's my favorite brand of tissue paper. But the quality of it has gotten worse. It's horrible quality. It's very rough now. Feels like you're rubbing your behind with sandpaper. And it's $13 for the rolls that I get when I used to spend $8.50 for them. Get some dish soap. Can't get the big one, have to get the small one. Still costs $1.75 for good dish soap, this Dawn antibacterial soap. And I think I bought some field peas just a can of field peas because I couldn't afford to get anything else. That was another $1.50. You can't find anything under $1 anymore. I like to drink Pepsi, but I haven't bought Pepsi in such a long time because I go to the store and to get a 20-ounce bottle of Pepsi is $2. And I've been watching the price of Pepsi rise over the course of the last several years. I watched it rise from $1.25 to $1.35 to $1.50 to $1.75. Last time I went to the store and bought Pepsi, as a matter of fact, it was $1.75. That's $2. Coke is $2.09. And I used to go get the cases of Pepsi. 12 cans. So it used to be $4.50. Now it's almost $8 for the same 12-pack. $8. Double the price, double the cost. But yet you have these shills in the media, the Democrats, the Biden beholden media, that are trying to tell you that there is no recession, that there is no inflation, that you won't feel any of this. I have never in my life had to spend $700 in a single month for groceries. But yet, every month, just to refill the cupboards, I'm spending close to $700 on groceries. I'm talking food, cleaning supplies, pet supplies, nothing else. Nothing for myself, just food, cleaning supplies, and stuff for my dog. My dog, she costs me roughly $150 every month. Buy 2 bags of dog food, buy some flea medication, some shampoo when she needs some dog biscuits. $150 every month just on the dog. And it's not like I'm going out my way to buy the most expensive stuff because I can't afford to, but I like to get my dog stuff that I trust will not make her sick. Treat the dog like you treat part of the family. We want to give them good quality food, good quality stuff. And so most of the time, I'm giving her rice that I cook. There's a couple of spices and herbs and put some peas in there. That way she can eat something when I don't have any money to go buy dog food because the prices of dog food have gone through the roof. To get the box of dog biscuits that I used to get used to cost only $2. Now it's over $5 for a box of dog biscuits. I go to the store to buy eggs. When I grew up, we grew up with chickens. We didn't always have chickens, but practically have had chickens since Hurricane Katrina. So basically the majority of my life, we've raised chickens and cultivated them for eggs. So when I go take a look at the price of eggs and I try to go buy good quality eggs, because you go get this crappy cheap eggs that you get at Family Dollar, the dollar store, those eggs are not really, really good. But those eggs still cost $3. And this is outrageous, outrageous prices. You know, you have to ration the type of food that you purchase, the type of food that you eat. You can't eat meat every day. You can't drink sugary drinks every day, though. I don't like drinking sugary drinks every day. If I do drink something sugary, it's going to be my sweet tea, which I buy. I buy sugar almost exclusively just to make tea, so that I'll have something other than water to drink. And I love water. I have my water filter right here next to me, which is a big pitcher full of water. As I realized that I haven't been hydrating myself as properly as I should, so I keep it here in the bedroom right next to the desk. And I fill it up, drink me some water throughout the course of the day, make sure I get my 8 glasses. What I'm trying to get at here, and we're going to talk about it later on in the show whenever Rhett decides to show up. What we have in our government right now, as a matter of fact, my microphone is way over here, so I've been talking past the microphone this entire time. I forgot I moved my microphone to a different location, just on the other side of the desk, because it's to make it closer to the computer, so I don't have all the wires wrapping around. So what we have here, and what we have here and what we are doing with our economy right now is we are ensuring the downfall of the American dollar. Without doubt, this is the end of the American dollar. We, in this so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which we've talked about before, but not on stream, I don't believe. It's 752 pages long. I haven't read all of it. I don't think anybody has read all of it. I've skimmed through it looking for breakdowns of the cost. $485 billion goes directly to the IRS. 87,500 agents hired over the course of 10 years to conduct audits, 75% of which will be targeted towards people who make less than $75,000 a year. So the bottom half of the country, the Democrats claim that they care about the working class, but every policy that they put in place harms the working class. And Joe Biden's energy policy just forced Ford, the American automobile maker, to shift over to electric vehicles. And because they have to do that, they're going to lay off more than 10,000 employees. People who have been making good money. These are Black people, by the way. I want you to understand that. For those people who say, well, White people don't get good jobs. No, the assembly line jobs, such as the ones at the Ford factories and General Motors, are largely employed by Blacks and Hispanics. And they make a decent living. When I say decent, they're in the $60,000, $70,000 margins. And at the lowest, 30 to 40. So they make a decent income. And now you've stripped their jobs away from them, because you want to try to force people to go into solar and electric, Who has $60,000 to go buy a low quality electric vehicle? They've offered you a $10,000 tax credit if you go purchase solar panels, put them on your house. To get just one solar panel put on top of your house, the average cost is about $25,000. They say they can reduce that by about 10%. You're still looking at around $23,000. Yet that means you have to put down, at bare minimum, if you have good credit, about 10% of that. That's about $2,000, $2,200 that you have to put down and make payments on for 20 years. Buying a solar panel is like buying a low-end car. I mean, the things that have become of our country and everything that we see is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. The spending never stops. You want to talk about inflation? The bills that they have passed guarantee that inflation will stick around for a long, long time to come. The bills that they have passed guarantee that inflation will rob us of our country. We're beholden now to whomever loans the federal government money, which are the special interests in China, in Russia, and the European Union. What we have now is an autocratic government full of bureaucrats that want nothing for the interests of the American citizen. The common American has no power over their lives, over their money, over anything, because this president has come in and utterly stripped off the veil that has been protecting us from the spending and reckless abuse of power and abuse of government that presidents, and I will even toss Barack Obama in there, whom I disagree with on many issues, have tried to protect us against. When Barack Obama's own economic advisors come out and say that Biden's plan with this new student loan forgiveness and this new Inflation Reduction Act is a bunch of hogwash, that's when you know that you've effed up the system. You are now taking somebody who has paid their student loan and forcing them to pay another one. We've averaged the cost to around $2,300 per American citizen over the course of 10 years that they'll have to pay this $300 billion, which will increase upwards to $900 billion. And probably more than that before the administration's over, while they're trying to purchase votes. Just for clarification, I had a student loan. My student loan was $2,500. And now you want me to pay $2,300 after I've already paid the $25. So now I have to pay my student loan all over again to cancel the student loans of somebody who's making 10 times the amount of money that I am. This is outrageous. This is ridiculous. And it's about time that Americans and that the common American, the people who are footing the bill, which are not corporations, so corporations pay the majority of taxes, but they don't pay taxes in the same way that you and I pay taxes. They pay taxes by writing it off to us because we have to purchase their goods. You see, the price of every single thing that we consume rises because of the spending of this government. They throw money to the college tuitions and the college admissions. So you know what happens? Some reckless children are going to go out there and just start taking loans while the government is forgiving it, so they can go party, so they can never have to pay it back. Go take to $10,000, $20,000 in loans and say, well, I don't have to worry about paying it because the taxpayer is going to pay it. And then the price of college tuition is going to rise because now there's government subsidies involved. It's the exact same thing that happened with Obamacare. The government's going to pay for it, so let's jack the price up because we have to put all this crap in there that nobody wants, take out the choice, and force you to purchase stuff that you don't want because the government said so. So in order to accommodate those plans, we have to increase the cost. And because government's paying for it, and we've monopolized and lobbied that government should pay for it and give us subsidies to do so, says the corporation, well, we're just going to keep raising the cost. And every year, the Affordable Care Act has risen in cost 600% at its highest in some states. But this is the world that you all want to live in, that you all have elected, where the price of common goods is more than that of oil. You know, it sounds vaguely familiar to me. The book of Revelation. It sounds vaguely familiar to me. That for the price of oil will be cheap, whereas bread, grain, and milk will become scarce and expensive. But what do you know? The government is forcing farmers to stop farming because they don't have enough GMOs, because they want to be all organic. The government is forcing farmers to stop milking their cows, to stop slaughtering the animals, to stop raising grain and cultivating vegetables. For what reason? They say we're in a food shortage. You created the food shortage by telling the farmers they can't farm and sell their product. I mean, this is utter nonsense. Absolute, complete, and total nonsense. But we're going to have to talk about that later. It's time to get onto the show. And so we're going to start the show, and we're going to have our news bulletin. Okay, so good day, everybody, and welcome to the Story of America. I am your host, DeAndre Pace, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rhett Williams. And today is Wednesday, as you should all know by now. This is SOA News, Story of America News, weekly bulletin for the week of August the 24th of 2022. Some pretty massive developments in news this week, and I think we should start off with the most egregious example of reckless spending that we've ever seen in a time of inflationary period. Rhett, I don't know if you were paying attention earlier today. President Biden signed a a bill or an order or whatever. I don't know. Sure, I'm not sure what it was because last I checked, the executive branch does not have the power to um, utilize the purse strings of government. However, they're saying that they're going to do this under the National Emergency Act, and because we're still in a national emergency because of COVID, that they are going to bypass the powers of Congress to forgive upwards of $20,000 in student loans, which is going to cost the American taxpayer roughly $350 billion.
Yes, I'm aware of it. I mean, what difference does it really make at this point? I mean, after all the other spending, it's just another, you know, it's just another 350 billion. So I'm kind of over it at this point. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm really just over all of this stuff. I only pay attention to it because I have to, but obviously I was not, I thought the way that he's going about this is, I don't have a problem with student loan forgiveness in as such, but not the way that he's doing it, not putting it off on the taxpayers. If it was up to me, I would seize the university's endowments and use that to forgive all the student loans. After that, stop giving out student loans and force the universities to lower their prices. But at the same time, this is kind of a conflict of interest because my student loans will be forgiven, but I think it'll be far worse for us in the long run. It'll end up costing us much more.
Oh, of course, it's going to cost 10 times as much money to go to college. For if we were to have children, for example, our kids will have to spend 10 times as much money to get the same degree.
Well, nobody's going like colleges. There's no point going to college anymore. It's just indoctrination. That's why I say at this point, unless you have a scholarship, or in the case of my siblings, you have a mother who's a professor, and myself, that's how I went to UNH. We went for free, but I didn't go to JD for free. I did take out Pell Grants, so I fall under that 20,000. I've got 15,000 left. Actually, I never paid any of it. So, but at this point, who's gonna, the loan program is pointless at this point. If you take out a loan after this, you're stupid. But I personally think they should just stop giving out loans and then seize the funding for all the universities and use that money to pay off everybody that's left, and then just stop giving loans out because the universities will be forced to lower their prices then.
I mean, for example, Harvard has over $2.5 billion in trust for scholarships, for grants. Yet they took a PPP loan and are also having to have the student loans of their students be forgiven. The average tuition cost for a, a degree at Harvard is $61,000 a year. I might be wrong. It may be $61,000 a semester, but I think it's $61,000 a year. At least the last time I looked, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago. The number could be higher now. So people who took a loan to go to Harvard, if they went to Harvard, are already from esteemed backgrounds and make significantly much more money than we do. Yet we are going to foot the bill for them who make more money than we do. This is the
So
government.
look, there's a limit on the income. It's 125,000 or less. Anybody that's making over that is not included. And I'm sure most Harvard graduates are over 125,000 a year.
Oh, trust me, it's not going to be that simple. They said the exact same thing about the Paycheck Protection Plan, yet now we're going back and finding is so many
Well, I
people
mean,
who
yeah,
abused
okay,
it.
we can speculate, but at this point, that's what it says, and that's all I have to go on.
That's what they said as well about this, about the IRS. Nobody making less than 400,000. Turns out
Okay, okay. Well, if
anybody making less than
in
$75,000.
practice that happens, we can talk about it then. But at this point, nothing has even been done, and I'm sure it's going to be challenged by the courts. Somebody's going to bring a lawsuit.
Yeah, I think somebody will bring a lawsuit, but I'm not sure under what grounds. And with the and in our present political system, I'm not sure that it would even go up to the Supreme Court.
Okay, just to get an idea here, in 2019 to 20, U.S. degree granting post-secondary institutions spent 671 billion total expenses. 430 billion at public institutions, 228 billion at private nonprofit, and 13 billion at private for-profit institutions. But that's the institutions themselves, not how much money the government is giving them. Okay, let's see. Federal investment in higher education from Treasury.
I think the number might be slightly over $1 trillion. But there are
This is
figures that
per
say,
year. It's okay, about 150 billion a year. So 2 year, if you just stop, oh yeah, 2018 actually, higher education institutions received a total of 1.068 trillion from the federal government. That's plenty of money to pay off everybody's student loans and then cancel the program after that. But that's not going to happen. He's just going to take a half measure and just do it. Use the money that, the reason that it's so expensive, obviously, the reason we have to take out loans is because they give loans,
and they
because they
continue to
make it
raise
more
the
expensive.
price.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that most people, well, maybe not most people, but anybody who understands anything about economics and politics knows that that's why. As soon as the government starts
Yes,
loaning people in the
as soon
guise
as
of trying to help them, then everything gets more expensive. That's just how
but
it works.
but it gets even worse because the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, and the leftists say that this doesn't go far enough, that this disproportionately hurts Black people because Black people are typically have $50,000 in student loans or more. And so because you're only canceling $10,000, you're hurting Blacks, and that you're going to lose the Black vote, which they're not going to lose the Black vote because the Black people don't vote with their brains. They're going to be racist in student loans, only canceling $10,000 to $20,000. So the actual estimates, if Biden's administration decides to come back and push it again, goes over $900 billion, which, if I look correctly, the breakdown would be an additional $5,000 per American taxpayer over the course of 10 years, and that is also not enough for the leftists, because if you give them this, they will push even further for free healthcare, or not healthcare, free education, which they will continue
Yeah,
to push. If you continue to give them any leeway, they will push and they will get even more, and it will be more damaging to our country and our economy.
I don't think he's going to go any further. I
You
mean, they
know what
might
I mean?
ask him to, but I really don't think he is. I think this is it.
I mean, you know why he's doing this.
And I mean, presumably because he thinks it'll help him win or help Democrats win. But, I don't know if that's, maybe a few people, but I mean, I'm not going to vote for him because of that. I mean, you can't really buy my vote. Like, you could pay off my loans, but I'm still not voting for you because I didn't agree with it to begin with.
I mean, let's take a look. The polls say that 75% of people under the age of 30 support Joe Biden, and
Wait,
90%.
say that again.
So the polls say that 75% of people under 30 support Joe Biden.
I don't believe that.
I mean, don't support
Or
Joe
which
Biden.
poll? Don't?
Don't is what I meant to say, not
Oh,
support.
I was going to say,
75% of people under 30 do not support Joe Biden.
I think his lowest approval rating is with millennials and Gen Z.
Yes, the 1% said that they support Joe Biden.
Wow.
Over 90% said that they want somebody else other than Joe Biden. But so he's catering to these particular people, these Gen Zers, these millennials who are in college. They don't follow politics, and so when they hear,
I really don't think this is not necessarily, there's people from all generations with student loans. My mom has student loans still.
yeah, but this is not a vote. This is not for them. This is for trying to get the progressives that are in this age group that are not supporting him. That's what they're after. They're after the AOC supporters, the Bernie
I
Sanders
just think they're
supporters.
after anybody who'd be willing to, I don't know if they're necessarily targeting a group. I think they're just targeting college people or people with loans in general. But I think his biggest supporting generation is actually boomers, which
And
is crazy.
yeah, boomers.
They should
Uh,
know better.
well, they're the ones that got us into this mess.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, but then, they could also point the finger at generations before them. We could continually point the finger in an infinite regress and still get nowhere.
That is true. However,
Because guess what? Whenever we are the oldest generation, guess who's going to be pointing the finger at us? The younger ones,
oh
Gen
yeah,
Alpha, and the generation that comes after them.
oh yeah, and they would have every reason to point the finger at our generation because so far our generation has done nothing but make the issue worse. So, there are some that are fighting to make the issue better, but the vast majority of our generation is fighting for the exact opposite. But unfortunately, because the majority of the country has lost their voice, it will repeat itself in a cycle in the next generation, where the majority of that generation will also have lost its voice to those who mean no good for the country.
I think that the next 20 years or so are so unpredictable that it's really impossible to say where we're going to be after that. So I try not to speculate too much about that far out in the future because there's so many variables, there's so many unknowns, and we have no idea where all this is going to lead us. We have some ideas, but it could go either way. Like I always say, it could go a number of different ways.
I'm hoping that for the majority of it we're wrong, but I have never been able to doubt myself.
Well, trends go when you follow trends, they don't just suddenly stop. They usually continue.
And that's what we're afraid of is the continuing trend. I believe that this is personally the stone that sunk the ship because this these two bills, the Inflation Reduction Act, doing this is a virtual guarantee of our age's Great Depression.
We still see that both of these bills, even together, are less than the COVID package that was passed under Trump.
Yes, however, what these two bills portend is one, they have put so much money in these particular bills that go to absolutely nothing.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about the specifics. I'm just talking about the total dollar amount.
Yeah,
But
the total dollar.
this inflation is, you can put some of this at Trump's feet also, a lot of it,
Yes,
because he didn't handle the pandemic the best. And, giving people free money,
yes,
I'm not saying it's just him. They didn't have the foresight to see that, okay, this is not just the bill. You have to look at the ripples. So what's going to happen when we give people free money? Well, they're going to realize that they don't have to go to work. And a lot of people aren't
yeah,
going to go to work after that.
yep. And the problem is Trump, he in his final years, the Democrats played a really, really good political game with him. once they took control of the House by essentially forcing the government to shut down, or Trump gives in and signs these overblown price and spending bills. They had him backed up in the corner, and I think this happened on 3 occasions during his presidency. Two of them during around Christmas time, where the government was shut down for about 13 days. For one, then he was trying to get border security passed, and eventually he had to fold and pass a block stop, just to keep the government open the government up for another 2 or 3 months. And again, it happened again when they were trying to do something on healthcare, and then it happened again just shortly before they signed the the COVID stimulus packages. And unfortunately, Republicans are so spineless that anything will pass the Congress, because Republicans, they have no balls.
Well, that's been the case for a long time. Can't really expect much out of them. But that's why that the third party within the Republican Party, Ultra MAGA, has been able to take over this primary season so effectively, because Democrats actually play politics very, very well.
Yes.
And they have, as long as I've been alive, probably before that, I'm sure before that. And they are a team. They act as a team. But for some reason, the Republicans, I don't know why the reason is or when this started, because this wasn't always the case. Obviously, Abraham Lincoln was no pushover. But in more modern times, the Republicans have just been afraid to do anything. And the MAGA people aren't, and they don't particularly care what you call them. But I don't know if there's going to be enough of them to make a difference. There's a lot of them that have won, and maybe they will. But that's yet to be seen.
What really matters is what happens in the Senate. We now have some speculation that the Senate is really not in play. It's probably a toss-up whether the Republicans win it or whether the Democrats keep it. And from the polls, it looks like Warnock will defeat Herschel Walker in Georgia. It looks like the Democrat will defeat Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. And so it looks like we're going to be sort of stuck in limbo.
Well, I mean, it's still too early to really call. I mean, we won't really know that until obviously the polls give you a loose idea, but polls are wrong a lot.
We're still about 2 months away, so anything can happen
all the time.
And we're looking at about a 25 seat majority for the Republicans in the House. That's what the numbers are looking like right now.
Yeah,
it could be.
They let it sink. At this point, I still think it's going to be a red wave, but I don't think it's going to be as big as the Republicans have kind of. This is their election to lose, and they've done a great job of sinking in the polls. It could have been like I said, it could possibly still be a 70 seat majority, but that's very optimistic, and that's the upper end. At this point,
their advertising
20 to 25.
The advertising is horrible. Ron DeSantis has a really good advertising right now. Have you seen it? Where he calls himself the Maverick Governor. Where he's doing basically
Maverick. He's trying to pull a John McCain.
No, he's doing basically a Top Gun parody for his campaign.
He does look like
it's a really effective campaign ad, where he lays out the 4 rules of fighting against the left, and does it all while wearing the Top Gun leather jacket and got the airplane behind him and all that stuff. But the Republicans, Donald Trump gave them pretty much the playbook of how to win this thing. Donald Trump goes to his rallies, puts a big Titantron up behind him, and halfway through the speech, he just starts playing videos of Joe Biden and the other Democrats saying stuff, and starts flashing memes on the screen. Effective. What do you need to say that the Democrats have not already said themselves? Use their own voices, their own recordings against them. But Republicans are too stupid to get that.
So the RCP average has Republicans back up by 0.2. But like I said, even when the Democrats, years when the Democrats are up by 5 in the average, they still lose.
So it's possible that the Republicans can still pull a higher majority, but right now the polling is showing 25 to 27, I think it was. But we're still hoping that it'll be much higher than that. And the same thing with the Senate. However, Mitch McConnell doesn't believe that they'll be able to take the Senate. Well, Mitch McConnell said that he doesn't believe that he'll take the Senate. He said, as a matter of fact, Mitch is warning the Republicans not to take this for granted, because if they don't show up, they will not get the Senate, and that's the problem with Republicans. You won't show up to vote. Well, I understand,
but yet they'll still bitch and complain about what's going on.
Yeah, but I understand not having a candidate in the race that you support, but is it really better than the alternative, or worse than the alternative?
It's a lot of these. Well, some places are safe red, like Mississippi, but it's the problem is these people in these contested districts, they want to, just sit at home, or, I'm assuming that's the case a lot of times. I mean, for example, in AOC's district, if all of the Republicans voted, she would lose, but none of them do because they think it's a lost cause, or almost none of them. But if they all voted, she would lose. There's enough Republicans in that district to flip it.
And then you have to worry about what's happening to Georgia and Florida and Texas and Arizona, where all of these liberals from cities in California and New York are fleeing, and now they are going into these conservative states, and they have the ability to change some of the voting roster.
That's never made sense to me. Like, why would they move? And then they really don't understand how it got that way in the first place. I mean, surely they have to. At least some of them have to understand that. I'm sure some of them do. But it just seems so strange to me that you'd leave a place because of how horrible it is due to Democratic policies, go somewhere that you like better, that is better, and then vote the same way. That's empty-headed. I don't get it.
Yeah, if that's the case, just stay where you came from and vote a different way there.
That's what they always say is going on, but I really I can't believe that that's really the reason. I just don't think if somebody has the means to move, I really don't see somebody bringing that with them, unless it's somebody from a lower income bracket, because at this point, one of the reasons why some of these places have gotten so bad is because they've allowed the bottom rung of society to completely fall off the ladder and just stay there. They've basically fallen out the bottom of the culture, and they're supporting that. They're not actually trying to get them back up. They're just trying to let them stay where they are.
So I don't know if you caught any of my rant. The Biden administration's energy policy is now forcing Ford to go electric in order to compete with the new subsidies that the government is trying to give out. And Ford is going to lay off more than 10,000 employees because they don't need them to produce electric vehicles. And there's an article from the New York Times that further amplifies exactly what the left is doing. This article from the New York Times is released 2 hours ago. California to ban the sale of new gasoline vehicles. Says that California regulators on Thursday will vote to put in place a sweeping plan to restrict and ultimately ban the sale of gasoline-powered cars. State officials said a move that the state's governor described as the beginning of the end for the internal combustion engine. The new policy, detailed Wednesday morning in a news conference, is widely expected to accelerate the global transition towards electric vehicles. Not only is California the largest auto market in the United States, but more than a dozen other states typically follow California's lead when setting their own auto emissions standards. So they say that the rule issued by the California Air Resources Board will require that all new cars sold in the state by 2035 be free of greenhouse gas emissions like carbon dioxide. This rule also sets interim targets requiring that 35% of new passengers vehicles sold by 2026 produce zero emissions. That requirement climbs to 68% by 2030. If this doesn't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt what we've already been saying about how the government does not care about the plight of the Americans, that they are in the hands of the energy lobbyist of this globalist shield or new world order, what more do you need? Do you not know what's going to happen to the energy sector as a result of this? What's going to happen to the automobile industry as a result of this? Them doing this, Ford no longer making gas-powered vehicles, is going to take a vehicle that costs $25,000, and in a few years' time, that vehicle will cost $60,000 because it is now considered a rare commodity. And in many cases, it will be considered a banned commodity, which will become somewhat of a collector's item. You'll be seeing vehicles like Toyota Camrys selling for $100,000 in a few years' time because of these types of bills. I mean, this is outrageous. This is ridiculous. I mean,
I'm trying to find a source for what you're saying,
yeah,
so we can be more specific.
I'll post it to you. Yeah, just open up the little chat thing down there.
Oh yeah, no, I know about that. I'm talking about what you said about Ford.
Oh, about Ford.
I don't think it's
I think it might be
stopping. It's not going to stop making gas cars completely. Oh, okay, I see. Says something about splitting up their electric and gas powered vehicle businesses.
Here's the New York Times article. Says Fords will phase out gasoline powered vehicles in Europe. This one says that by 2026, the company will only offer electric and plug-in hybrid models. By 2030, all passenger cars will run solely on batteries, and that's in Europe. Now, this was posted in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, this article. And so Ford has already started to begin that phasing process in Europe.
Yeah, well, that's Europe. I mean, I think it would probably be more feasible in Europe. But you know what? After this run of the next few years, globalism will not really be a thing. I think the world is going to go back into isolated to certain areas as far as the economy goes, because we really don't have a choice. Because the economy is shrinking everywhere. And if we're not patrolling the waters, if we're not keeping the world's oceans safe, it's not going to be safe to ship. Stuff's going to get pirated way more than it is now, because we're not going to be able to afford to police the oceans anymore.
I mean, when you take a look at what's going on, every crisis that we have right now is artificially made. We have an artificial climate crisis, which isn't really real. We have an artificial food shortage. We have artificial inflation, which has been created by an unnecessary need for spending, which is further perpetuated by more unnecessary spending. We have artificial war that is created between Russia and Ukraine by the breach of the contract that NATO signed with Russia more than 30 years ago. We have an
I mean, by
artificial,
these definitions, wouldn't everything technically be artificial?
well, if you want to go that way, but you understand what I'm saying here, that every single thing that we're facing right now is all artificial. The food shortage, the government told the farmers to stop farming. And then they say that we have a food shortage. Well, yes, we have a food shortage because you are forcing the farmers not to farm. We have a gas shortage because you turned off our ability to produce energy. It's all man-made. It's all artificial. It's not like a natural uh decrease in increase in energy
It's
costs.
not a natural economic fluctuation.
Yes, exactly. It's just completely
Yes.
artificial. They have engineered this purposefully for whatever reason. I mean, we can only speculate when we have a pretty good idea what the reason is, but we can't say with 100% certainty.
You put the puzzle pieces together. I mean, it looks pretty clear. I'll be surprised if it does not culminate in the instituting of a worldwide governmental structure. Well, at least the attempt to do it, because they will, of course, pose themselves as the saviors of humanity once things get so bad. And a lot of people will fall for it, especially the more poor people, because they're going to be so bad off that it'll be a relief to them.
I mean, just think about it. Essentially, COVID was an artificial crisis, a virus that we created, that we released, and they're doing it again and releasing more viruses that we have created. And now Dr. Fauci is deciding to retire before Republicans can reclaim the House. And not only is he retiring after 50 years working for government, he's retiring and taking a $350,000 paycheck every year with him.
All right, let's be clear about the viruses. We know COVID was made in a lab. The only thing we don't know actually is if it was intentional or not. You know, you can speculate, you can say that, and maybe it was, but we have no definitive evidence that that's the case. Now, all these viruses are popping up everywhere. It sure makes it seem very suspicious, but we don't actually know for 100% fact if it's
Well, I'll tell you the most suspicious one to me is the fact that New York, I know I talked about this the last time, but the fact that New York's water is riddled with polio is very disturbing to me because
Hmm.
we
I
were
actually I
supposed to.
found out the reason for that.
What was it?
The
Because
Jewish community in the Jewish community is the Orthodox Jewish community does not vaccinate their children. So
that
that's the
still
reason
wouldn't
for that.
that still wouldn't
They're
explain
not
this.
vaccinated against polio. They don't believe in vaccines.
That wouldn't explain the resurgence of polio found in the water.
The sewer system. I'm just telling you what I heard. I don't, I mean,
I
I
mean,
don't know how somebody caught it, but
according to what
I really don't, I think that's just a,
according to what you told me, at least from what we researched, the last what was it? The last wild case of COVID was not COVID of polio was what in the 1970s,
I don't
and
know.
and that we had
I think there's different strains of it.
a rare strain of it was seen in what 2013 or something like that.
Okay.
But But polio isn't the only thought to be extinct virus that has made resurgences. I mean, we have seen in Washington State, measles and mumps have made resurgences. Same thing over in New York, measles and mumps have made resurgences.
It is. It's the confirmed polio case in an unvaccinated adult, and the detection of the virus in sewage could indicate a larger outbreak underway. Based on, okay, so there have been earlier polio outbreaks at different times. This is not, let's see. Okay, let's see. Recent polio outbreaks.
I
Because
would
you
have
never hear about it really.
I would have
I
to
feel like we
imagine.
don't actually know how many times there's outbreaks, I think we just might be paying more attention to them now that we've been in a pandemic.
I would have to imagine that these polio outbreaks would have to come from another nation, considering the amount of effort we went through to eliminate it. I would have to imagine that these are probably immigrant-born viruses that get transmitted to people who haven't gotten vaccinated for polio here in the United States.
Yeah, because polio is still in plenty of other places in the world, especially third world countries. I mean, that's how
And
Ebola came here.
if you're saying that it's with Jewish people, then that would make some sense because the Jewish people are right there on the border of the third world.
There's Jewish people all over the world. I'm not necessarily talking about Israelis.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying if they came here from visiting Israel, as many Jewish people would like to go visit Israel, and they've come into contact with it over there, it's possible. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think they would come to contact with it in Israel. Israel is like a developed country. It's true. That's just what I heard. So I don't really think we have any more details about it. I think that might have just been speculation also.
And so we do know that Fauci will be leaving his post from the NIH and the CDC in December. I think they said December 13th will be the final day that Fauci will work for the federal government after 54 years and as a bureaucrat, getting paid more than the president of the United States. And then gets to take another $350,000 as a retirement pension for lying about the information surrounding COVID and changing the definitions to cover his ass. But in other news, and this one is a continuation of what we've been talking about for the last several weeks. we now have undeniable proof that the Biden administration is involved and is responsible for the raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago for the documents. From the National Archivist, we now know that the Biden administration waived Trump's executive privilege to have classified documents and to uh, keep his executive privileges out of their office in order for them to enact the affidavit to get a warrant, which is the reason why they went to a magistrate who is not, a Supreme Court justice or a justice or a judge, in the normal sense, has been appointed by election. Or appointed by a president of the United States. And we now know that the judge that did so had to recuse themselves from a case surrounding Trump because of a bias against Donald Trump, which we saw in a bunch of their tweets, the magistrate. So the Biden administration lied to the press, lied to the American people when Peter Doocy was asking Karine Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is, if the Biden administration knew about the raid, had any activity in the raid, and they said that they found out when we found out. Well, now we know that Biden was the one who signed off on waiving the privileges of his predecessor in order to allow for the raid to happen. This is perhaps an even bigger abuse of power than we've seen from the FBI raiding Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago, because this has never been done before, where a president of the United States has waived the executive privileges of a previous sitting president.
I don't think he can do that.
Well, that's what he did.
Biden personally,
Yes, that's what they said. They said that the National Archivist wrote a letter to the Biden administration asking for the Biden administration to waive the executive privilege of their predecessors so they can go in there and seize the documents, because they said they were out of time, even though they were cooperating with the Trump administration for 20 months on getting the documents. As a matter of fact, let me pull up the article and we'll find some more. So this one here comes from Your News. This is an article here. It says this is by Channel Ryan, the chief White House correspondent of this particular news organization. It says newly reviewed memos between Biden White House and the FBI, DOJ, and the National Archives shows the White House, as early as April, was involved in discussions surrounding Trump's papers and documents. According to documents received by Just the News, then the White House Deputy Legal Counsel Jonathan Su dismay told the National Archives President Biden would not object to waiving Trump's claims of executive privilege. End of quote. It says in a letter on May 11th, 2022, the White House counsel's office affirming a request from the Department of Justice supported by an FBI letterhead memorandum formally transmitted a request that NARA, the National Archives, provide the FBI access to 15 boxes for its reviewing within 7 days, with the possibility that the FBI might request copies of specific documents following the review of the boxes, wrote the wall. It later goes on to say that the counsel to the president has informed me that in light of particular circumstances presented here, President Biden defers to my determination in consultation with the Assistant Attorney General for the office of legal counsel regarding whether or not I should uphold the former president's purported protective assertion of executive privilege. I have therefore decided not to honor the former president's protective claim of privilege. End of quote. So the Biden administration knew all along and signed off on Trump's executive privilege being waived.
You know, at this point, like, aren't you just tired of talking about the same stuff over and over again? Because I know this is a new development in the story, but like, honestly, we actually probably could have wrote a story all the way through and got this right. Like, if we just decided to write a fictional version of this story, we would have already predicted this. So, like, you know, what is there really to say about it? Like, we know. It's like when I see it, something happen, I'm just like, oh, I was waiting for that.
Yes. And now this even purports even more that this FBI affidavit, I do not believe that we're going to be able to, that we're going to receive any useful information in the affidavit. I think everything useful is going to be redacted, as we've talked about before. And that's because the very person whose decision it is to release that information is the same magistrate who had to recuse himself from a Trump-regarded matter before. And we have to
Yeah.
trust that they will, in good faith, release information relevant to this case.
I think 2019 was the peak of American civilization, and we are now on the downward slope. Since 2020, I swear, it has felt like we all just slipped into a dimensional rift, and we're somewhere else now.
I wish that we had. I wish that we had.
Like everything you could never imagine, all the craziest stuff is just happening, and it's normal part of life now. You know, the government's talking about aliens and stuff. They've admitted that they were using remote viewing and astral projection and documents. All the stuff that they've admitted and all the stuff that we know that they've done now, it's just like a cartoon. Like, we're living in, you know, we're on a different plot line now.
Yet Alex Jones is still called a nut job and is deserving of a
Alex
straight
Jones is a prophet. When I first really started watching him back in 2016, I thought all kind of stuff he said was just, there's no way. And then one by one, all of it happens.
I was the same way. I started watching Alex Jones around the same time that I started watching Bill O'Reilly and MJTV, that used to be pretty big. AMJ TV, that used to be pretty big on YouTube. I used to watch him all the time. And as time went on, I was like, these guys are crazy. They're nut jobs. They keep talking about aliens. They keep talking about all this undercover conspiracy. And I don't believe in conspiracy theory. I believe in evidence. I don't believe in dismissing conspiracy theory, but until I see evidence, I will not follow a conspiracy theory. But I always give credence to conspiracy theory, and I just say, okay, when you show me evidence, I'll change my mind about it. And the evidence of what Alex Jones and some of these others have said, it's come to the light.
Cam, I was hoping,
I was hoping that they were wrong.
My shadow was actually hoping they were right.
I was hoping that they were a bunch of nut jobs, and that I was wrong about that, and that I was wrong to trust them, and that they needed to be in a padded room with a straight jacket.
The thing about Alex Jones is that part of what he does is like, it's boisterous purposely. He's like playing a character. Like, he's really not that like all of the stuff that he knows is real information, most of it. If you watch him in like an interview with somebody else that's just interviewing him, he'll be acting normal. He'll still be saying crazy stuff, but it's true most of the time. And a lot of times they'll go and look it up in live on the show, and it's just like, right, correct. Wow, all this stuff that he's saying is just pull it up. But on his own show, sometimes he'll yell and go crazy and take his shirt off and stuff. But that's just really a character that he's playing.
Yeah, and well, we are now in a banana republic. We've been in a banana republic
Unfortunately.
for a while.
Well, but the
Just
Trump
not
raid on the
brazen.
FBI Trump raid is what really lets you know, like, this is actually, that's what they do in third world dictatorships. That's what they
Yes.
do.
This, they do everything they can to silence political rivals.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff they did in the Soviet Union. And also their show trials.
I wouldn't
Alex
be
Jones,
surprised.
Steve Bannon, those are Soviet show trials.
Yes, essentially they are. And you know what? At this point, and I hope I'm not predicting anything, but I would not be surprised if the Biden DOJ did not try to charge Donald Trump with treason.
I'd be surprised if it was treason, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, I'd be surprised if they don't try to charge him with something at least.
According to information that we've seen that was leaked by the DOJ to the New York Times, they're already starting to leak information out, just like they did with the Russia stuff, and nothing was ever produced. But according to the information that I have seen and that I have heard, they say that they're trying to charge the Trump administration or President Trump himself with the Sedition Act and violations of the Espionage Act, of sedition and espionage, which doesn't make any sense because, again, the president is 100% capable of viewing these documents even after their tenure in office has left because of executive privilege and their ability to remove classified information. And they are up in arms about 750,000 pages of documents that are classified. Remind you that Barack Obama has 31 million pages of classified information in his cellar.
A lot of the stuff they take for their presidential libraries, and it's perfectly normal. But I'm guessing, like I think I said previously in another episode, I'm guessing that Trump has some incriminating evidence on some of these agents.
Apparently, the FBI wanted to take Donald Trump's letter, the original letters that were sent between him and Kim Jong-un. I guess they're trying to find a way to incriminate him on talking to Kim Jong-un, trying to prevent Kim Jong-un from acquiring a nuclear weapon. I'm of the same belief as well. And you know who are conducting the search of Donald Trump's documents? Well, it's the exact same FBI lawyers and officials that investigated the Steele dossier for the Russia collusion hoax. The exact same high-ranking officials that did it then, minus Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, but the exact same ones that were involved in it before are involved in it again.
You know, you would think anybody, right? Anybody that's investigated that thoroughly, they'd find something, right? Anybody. Nobody is that clean. I'm actually surprised that they haven't actually found anything.
That's what I said about Donald Trump. He's either the cleanest billionaire, the most honest American in history, go up right up there of Honest Abe and I Should Never Tell a Lie, George Washington, or he's a genius and he just knows how to keep the stuff out of the hands of the government. One of the two. It doesn't make sense that you can investigate a guy.
A lot of the unscrupulous stuff Trump did was in his business, and so it's unrelated, and they can't really do anything about that.
I would agree, but
because everybody's done unscrupulous things, especially multi-billionaire businessmen.
Yeah, I would agree, but I would say you would think that after 7 years of nonstop investigation, that you'd be able to find something that sticks to the guy. You're like, oh, we convicted his friends. On what crime?
That's what they do to everybody they want to get. They just convict their friends.
Oh, we convicted Roger Stone on what crime? We we convicted his lawyer of the Trump campaign because they failed to pay their taxes. Okay, that's Trump's lawyer. Has nothing to do with Donald Trump himself.
Yeah, but if you look at all the cases of the people that have been around Trump that got convicted, it was all just made up stuff.
Yes, a lot of it. George Papadopoulos, he gets 2 weeks in jail for talking to a Russian.
2 weeks.
2 weeks in jail after, had to spend all that over $500,000 trying to defend himself against the FBI and bankrupted him and his family, and then they give him 2 weeks in jail.
2 weeks.
Michael Flynn.
That's just to say F you. 2 weeks in jail, dude. What you gonna do? You wasted your life to try to not serve 2 weeks.
Paul Manafort raided pre-dawn with guns and the FBI blazing through there, put in solitary confinement for
Dude,
what?
Like, really, the FBI is literally acting like the Gestapo. This is what they're doing now. This is their job.
I mean, I sent you those videos last night of one of my favorite shows, John Adams, HBO, and I sit there and I say, my gosh, this feels like you and I sitting here talking about this stuff over and over again.
Most of the time we agree on things. Because if you don't like it about this subject specifically, like if we were talking to somebody who didn't agree,
if we were on Omar's show, I'd be banging my head against the wall if we were doing those on Omar's show right now,
dude. Like, because those people they don't know anything. You can, if somebody has a legitimate, like if they actually have an argument that they've thought through that disagrees, that's great. I'm perfectly willing to listen.
And that's what I always say. I always say to them, show me the evidence. I mean, if you believe in this stuff, if you truly believe that what you're saying is right, it should not be that hard for you to counter my arguments with evidence.
Well, most people just they don't actually have reason. It's not that I believe things. Okay. I just know things and I speculate, but this doesn't involve belief at all. This is just facts.
I have my personal beliefs, but my personal beliefs are based off of things that I can prove.
Yeah, well, most people actually don't, or I should say most of the people who would have a contrary opinion on this topic specifically don't actually have all the evidence and they don't know the facts. They just choose to believe something in the absence of evidence, which is what they call faith. That's not really what faith is. That's just ignorance.
I've often, well, I'm pretty sure the definition of faith, as according to the Bible, Hebrews. And so, and so for me, faith is all about the evidence. That's why I can believe, because I have seen the evidence of my faith. Some people don't understand that. We had a wonderful conversation in our casual Saturday about the idea of astral projection, about the idea of transcending this realm to be able to speak with God on a higher plane of existence. And there you are. You're kind of freezing a little bit. Thought you fell out.
You were freezing too.
But we had this great conversation about this, and it's 100% true that you can have these experiences. And for people who have experienced it, because they are able to have enough faith to get there, you call them crazy. For people who believe in Sasquatch, we call them crazy, though their fossil record already proves that the animal existed, and it's not beyond the realm of possibility that it still exists.
Yeah, people just what we actually know is so minuscule. I mean, I'm talking about the human race collectively.
Yes.
We like when you know how Wikipedia will label certain topics as pseudoscience. Like, how the hell do you know? Like,
Exactly.
how do you know what? I mean, really?
Exactly.
Just
And, the thing is, so as you said, our understanding of the world in which we live in, because of time elapsed, is so narrowly limited that even though we account for Earth's history no more than half of a page of a book, on the last page of a book, if we were to chronicle the Earth's history in a book, just the history of time in which we have been alive, we have lost information probably billions of times over with the rising and falling of several different civilizations, tribes, uh, just individuals.
civilizations that we don't even know about. I mean,
Exactly.
there was definitely an advanced civilization of humans before us,
Yes,
before
because
the
we
Younger Dryas period,
because we
12,600 and something years ago. And I
we
think that
had
they
to
were
model
advanced.
our information off of them.
I think that they were advanced in a different way than we are. I think that they were more advanced when it comes to consciousness and they understood more how to use it. And now we just deny that it's even a thing. Well, not we, but some people will even go so far as to say is that consciousness is an illusion. Wow. Like maybe you aren't, but that's a pretty hard thing to that's a hard argument to try to make. It almost makes you I think Daniel Dennett, one of the new atheists, makes that argument is it's an illusion. Well, you have to believe that in his situation. But it's like really it's what you experienced it's like the background of experience itself, but you think it's not there.
Yeah, and a lot of time people will say, "Well, what's your proof that it's there?" And then you give them an anecdotal uh argument. Or what's your proof that air exists? Can you capture it? Well, yeah, I can put it in a bottle. Can you see it? Can you smell it? Can you taste it? Do you know what it tastes like? Do you know what it looks like? Can you see it through the lens of a microscope? I
Or do
was
you
like,
even
well,
know for sure it's there at all? Or do you just accept that it's there because other people have said, hey, there's air? Obviously, you're breathing.
and
So,
then when you talk about the metaphysical existences of matter, you say, well, what am I holding in my hand right now? It's like, oh, you're not holding anything. Well, if you believe that air exists, and I am holding air, and this air could be any shape, you just can't see it. So
the better question is like, what is energy? What is
yes,
it?
and
No
and
one
I
knows.
I dare to say that anybody has been able to provide a sufficient answer for energy. Even Einstein's theory of relativity does not accurately explain energy.
Yeah. Science doesn't make anything. All it does is describe what seems to be happening. Like energy. Okay, we don't know what it is, but we can measure it, we can use it, but we don't really know what it is. We don't actually know what anything really
And
is.
and and energy in itself is a very broad umbrella term, as we've been able to apply it to so many different things, which may or may not even be actual energy. For example, we refer to gasoline as the energy which powers our vehicles, which in turn we call that fuel. But we call that the energy. We call us walking kinetic energy. The motion of things in force is energy. If you want to commune with the gods, so to speak, you need a certain degree of spiritual energy about you. Energy
Oh, okay.
itself.
Yeah. I mean, you could use it in any context, but you could also ask the same question about space or time or gravity or mass.
Yes,
What are they? We don't really know what they are. We just kind
phenomenal.
of made the concepts up to try to understand.
Yes, phenomenal concepts upon which no human being will ever be able to know the actual answer as to what it truly is, or to whether or not we're using them accurately. But for things that people can physically and tangibly see with their own eyes, you would call them crazy, lunatics, and wackos. while you believe in something that in theory should exist, evidence should exist, but in sight is nowhere to be found.
Well, if you only base your reality on your senses, then why don't you think a drug trip is real? Because to your brain, it's exactly the same. Or why isn't a dream real? Because if you have your senses in a dream, but they say a dream's not real.
You
Okay,
know,
well, it's just as real to your brain. And if all you are is your brain, then it's real. So we just got off on a tangent here talking about these empty-headed people who just
but I think
they think that they're the intellectual ones when they
I
actually
think it
just
is
they don't.
relevant. I think it is relevant to the point that for so long in our society, these so-called intellectuals, or as Thomas Sowell liked to call them, the anointed intellectuals among us, consistently interfere in our lives because they project to know more than we do when they know nothing of anything, of any reasonable measure. The only thing that they have is the money and power of government to put them in places in which people will look to them as the true light of vision of knowledge in the world when they know literally nothing about anything. And that any real intellectual scholar would never agree of a single thing that these damned fools say.
I've got to add, I used to have a little bit of respect for Sam Harris. Out of all the new atheists, he was the one that I actually kind of liked. But he's been trying to derive some sort of moral code and been claiming that science can provide that for a long time. But a couple days ago on a podcast, he went all the way, and he actually said that Hunter Biden could have had kids in his basement, dead kids in his basement. He wouldn't have cared. That pales in comparison to just Trump University. The dude just went completely off the rails and just said some outrageous things. This is the guy. I mean, obviously he's self-righteous and he thinks that what he's saying is the correct thing. But meanwhile, he's trying to create some sort of he's trying to convince people that science can be moral.
These atheists, these Scientologists, these people who proclaim to be faithless are the most religious people I have ever seen.
Yeah, it
They are
appears
they
to
are
be
they
very.
are they are
It's
so much to
cult-like
the
behavior.
fact they are so much to the fact that they, in many cases, make themselves into a messianic figure, trying to usher the world into the new age of grandeur. I mean, honestly, Rhett, the more and more I see the total degradation of our society, the more I find that my dreams, when I do dream, are of the most avarice that I have become. I have longed, my friend, for a longing to no longer be present here because of the atrocities and degradation that I have seen. Yet I understand that it is my duty, it is my job to see the good fortune of the people who come after me should inherit something that is worth keeping. But more and more, what I have seen and what I have come to realize is that the eternal slumber, which will take us all, it will be most welcome for me. Because this is truly a living hell. And as I said before, you came on during my rant. If you look around, there's barely any analogy of comparison that one can use than that of the book of Revelation when it speaks of oil being plentiful and costless, whereas breads, and grain, and milk become scarce and expensive. And it's true, we've been there before, but we've never been in a system like this, where literally by their own definition will make oil become numerous because they will force us to not use it if they have their way.
What are you talking about? Oil. There was no fossil fuels.
I
You talking
mean,
about like olive oil, like
I'm
food
talking,
oil?
no, I'm just talking oil in general. But what I'm saying here is that what they have decided to do is they have completely tried to upend us from everything. We have no way to preserve our own energy. We have no way to cultivate our own foods because the government can come in and shut your food systems down if they so desire. Now they can come in and seize everything. I mean, Donald Trump in this particular case is suing the DOJ for violating his Fourth Amendment rights, which I think he has every right to do. But who in this present system would be willing to prosecute that or defend that? And now we are also seeing where we have to receive permission from government to do anything. I was looking. I don't know. I have never went to go get a hunting and fishing license, but I was looking at this pamphlet that I received when I was at Dad's pawn shop the couple no last week. And I always get the little free booklet that they have, the penny pinchers or the penny plus, as I changed the dangerous name, or the Daily Trader. And they had this book, and it was like a hunting book. And I'm looking in there at the cost of the licenses to go fishing. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. The amount of money that you have to spend to go catch fish. At $300 for a license that expires in what, 2-3 months.
It's just a way for the government to make money. Well, actually, they would say it is a wildlife preservation mechanism to prevent people from overfishing or overhunting, because people will do that. But it is a little bit strange to have to do stuff like pay in order to go do something that people have done forever.
I have to pay to go hunting. I don't hunt because I can't stand the thought of harming an animal. So I don't hunt, but I do fish.
Fish are animals, dude.
I do fish, but I don't gut the fish. I just clean the scales. My grandmother does all of the gutting. When we go to the butchers and stuff like that, I don't have the heart in me to do that. Plus, I don't like the sight of blood. Uh, but I could understand if this was about commercial product, but $300 is not going to prevent a commercial person from going out there and doing anything. So the $300 that you're spending is not for commercial fishing; it's for average, normal day people that do not have the funds or resources to go out there and harvest that much fish.
Oh, it's mainly for, it's just a revenue stream for the government, obviously.
Yes, but and I sit back and I'm looking at our Constitution. I'm looking at everything within it, and I cannot find anywhere in the Constitution where many of these things should even be considered legal. But there have been no challenges against any of
They're
them.
perfectly legal because it's state issues.
And many
Now you'd have to look at the state constitution, but the federal constitution is left vague on purpose because that's for the federal government, not the state governments.
And then I look at many of the things that we have on the acts now, like the Davis-Bacon Act. many of these licensure laws, which came into effect during the times of Jim Crow and times before even that, things that made its way to federal cases and made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, that should, by all means, be removed, yet they are still in place today. And we wonder why we are such a problem in our economy. You know, in order to get a taxi cab license, as if we even need those anymore with Uber, but in order to get a taxi cab license in the state of New York, it's about $300,000. Assuming you can even get one, because most areas in New York do not even allow you, since the 1970s, if I remember correctly, to issue any new taxi cab licenses. I mean, the
There's
sheer,
enough cab drivers in New York.
yeah, I'm saying, but there's enough cab drivers, but the fact that if somebody wanted to become competitive in the market,
It wouldn't be. It's
they'd
saturated.
have they'd have to pay $300,000 to get in.
They wouldn't pay that. I mean, I don't know. I don't. There's probably just too many. So
And now
they
what?
can't legally stop you from doing it. So they just make it so expensive that you can't, which is basically stopping you from doing it. But what do you do when there's too many?
Well, you see, here's the thing. This is how that happened. Walter Williams wrote about it in one of his books. Walter Williams, Dr. Walter E. Williams used to be a taxi cab driver, and what he noticed is that the majority of taxi cab drivers would not drive in certain neighborhoods, which were disproportionately black and low income, and so blacks or lower cost taxi cab companies would have their own taxi cabs come into these particular areas, and they would do sort of a bus route type of system where they come in and they drop off people at certain areas within these areas, and they charge a lower rate to be able to compete, and they would take the customers that the larger taxi cab companies would not take. Well, the larger taxi cab companies didn't like that, and so they lobbied, and they got the taxi licensure law to be raised way up, and those particular areas in which the taxi cabs were most needed for people who could not get into the inner city were stripped of their ability to have one, because companies lobbied to have the licenses and stuff increase so high that the competition for those smaller markets would be eliminated. And since they themselves were not interested in those smaller markets, the people became left without.
Well, that's a side effect of crooked capitalism we call corporatism. I mean, I don't really know how would you avoid that kind of stuff. You know, we could talk about all these measures that we could take, and at the end of the day, we're talking about human beings, and there's never going to be.
You
I
know,
mean, things could be fixed, but I mean, at a certain point, it's too much. You can't expect that much out of people. We can't fix the system. We're just never going to fix it. We
you know,
can fix certain things.
more and more, I'm starting to feel the idea of Thomas Jefferson in that clip that I sent you when he was talking with Hamilton about this creation of a central bank, that it would make a Virginia farmer, beholden into a New York stockbroker who's beholden to a British bank. And in this case, it's making everybody else beholden to this, because now the central government has, as we talked about before, has become so all-encompassing that nothing that you do can happen without the say of central government. And the only way to reverse this is to limit the authority and power of central government. But the only way to do that will be to strip central government of control of currency. And that will never happen.
It might, but it's going to take a long time.
How do you propose?
Cryptocurrency could eventually become more valuable than all fiat currency. At that point, when no one uses fiat currency anymore, this is just a hypothetical. It could happen.
How
Then
would you
the state would,
protect against
let me
how would you
finish. Then when no one's using fiat currency anymore, crypto becomes so valuable that the nation state loses control of the economy. And that's how I see it as a possible future.
how
What
would
were
you
you saying?
how would you protect against the Biden administration's plans to regulate cryptocurrency into the modern economy?
I'm talking about like future stuff. Um, it wouldn't really matter because they can't really control it. They can pretend like they're going to control it. They can try, but cryptocurrency is just not easily accessible like that for that kind of control or regulation, because ultimately it's on a blockchain network that is not easy to hack, and if you did, everybody would immediately know. And in order to regulate it to where you can't buy certain things, like the only way they could do it is if they top down created their own currency and forced everyone to use it, their own crypto, which is of course what they want to do with the central bank digital currency. But unless they do something like that, then they won't really be able to control the crypto market.
That's
But they will make
true.
every effort to do it. They will. They
Oh,
are.
without doubt, they will make every effort in order to try to continue to have a monopoly on the financial affairs of this country, which is well, leads to my next question. Uh, what are the mechanisms do you think that we have in our present state that we could use for the decentralization of central government, or should I say, the decentralization of authority with central government?
If you have a central government, it will always increase the scope and scale of its power. It's an inevitability. It's basically a law of human nature. Because that's just that's what most humans. I really don't understand the thought process of most humans. It almost feels like to me that they're just like the majority of humanity. When I interact with and see and watch what's going on, it looks like a bunch of
Worker
like teenage
bees.
souls, very young souls that are concerned about this is what it seems like to me. Because you'll have grown adults 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, some of these politicians still concerned about worldly things like wealth and power and status. And everybody cares about those things to a certain degree. But those things would never be, I can't see those things ever being a major motivation in my life. And I've never thought about any of those things above actually, making a difference in the lives of other people and individuals. And if that ripples out to the wider society, that's great. But
You know,
it's not about
I've often thought about it myself, but in much the same
any of those
scope.
other things for me. And I don't understand why the people don't feel like, why don't they want to?
Your volume was moving really lagging behind. But I've often thought about those things, much in the same scope that you have. But for me, status, I could deal without status. I really don't like the attention. However, if it would be necessary in order to bring light to some of the things that needs attention, I would gladly take the burden. But for the vast majority of it, what I want out of wealth and power is merely stability for people that I care about. And as you said before, if that affects other people and makes their lives better, then it is a plus. As I believe
Well, it's
that
not a
if
primary motivation, is what I'm saying. I don't, money for money's sake is not the point. And that's not how I feel. But for a lot of people, that is.
yeah, for a lot of people, they just want money and power and wealth just because, they'll get it and be broke within a year's time, within 2, 3 years time. And have to start all over again. Some people, on the other hand, they get their money and like George Soros, and they have a bigger mission at hand where they want something grander than themselves, which is world domination to a degree. Have the entire world be influenced by webs of the ultra wealthy, and they themselves are influenced by slimy politicians and bureaucrats who they themselves are beholden to the smallest minorities of community. When I say the smallest minorities of community, I mean the ones that are screaming the loudest, who represent the smallest minority within our community. Because the vast majority of the world does not want anything that the politicians claim to want. But those are the only people that they ever put in the limelight, that they ever give voice to, or this meager minority of people. And the politicians divert all their efforts to quelling these people who will never be quelled, as when these people are quelled, the politicians will just go find somebody else that has been burdened by something, and then they will appease those individuals. And so those of us who actually look to government to do for the people will never be done for.
I mostly don't look to government to do anything, you know, most of the time. People have to do for themselves. But I mean, the point is, I feel like an old soul in a world full of young souls.
I've often been called an old soul trapped in a young person's
Me,
body.
I also have as well. But I really, it seems like I fundamentally think differently than like 99% of people in the world.
It feels like, as you said earlier, it feels like we don't belong here. Like the Nelson Mandela effect, we crossed into a different universe of some sort, and we are in a world that we do not belong in.
You know, sometimes I thought about stuff like that. I posted this not long ago. I was like, you know, if quantum immortality was real, I'm dead in my original timeline. I've switched to a new one.
Yeah, I've often said that if reincarnation is real, then I have been reincarnated from somebody who's been here before and has seen
Well,
all of this
obviously, you know,
before.
if you float the idea of reincarnation, I feel like I've definitely.
I mean,
It seems all so familiar now. I've been through this so many times.
I experience deja vu at times that I shouldn't, because I've some things I like when I first went to college, I experienced deja vu, like I've been here before. Well, I've never been here before. I've never even seen this college campus before. Maybe it's because maybe it's the way I felt when I first went to school in elementary or for the very first time. Not
You
sure.
know, a lot of people don't have experiences like that. They also synchronicities, very strange coincidences happening. Most regular people, they've never experienced anything like that, which is crazy to me because it happens to me a lot.
I know it happens to me quite often. I'm like, I feel like I've done this before. I feel like I've been here before. Certain places that I go to, I feel
Yeah.
a higher awareness of the area.
Precognitive dreams where you dream something and then it'll happen. Like
Yes,
you'll be somewhere in a dream and then you go there in real life and you're like,
but then there are some times where I go someplace in real life that I've never dreamed about, that I've never thought of, and then I get there and I feel overwhelmed by a deepness in my spirit that makes it feel as though I've been here before. Something is strange about this area. I have a higher sense of spiritual awareness of this particular area. And then things begin to reveal themselves to me as I begin to realize why I may be interested or disinterested in this place that I'm in. You know, I get overwhelmed at times by things of this nature. And I know we're no longer talking about the news, but I still think this is relevant. That to some degree, whether I be an angelic spirit trapped in a human host or a human who has been here before, repeatedly reincarnated time and time again. And in some of my dreams, I often envision myself as as a as a spirit, as an angelic being that has been reincarnated multiple times in human lifespans, having lived the lives of several different types, lived lives as royalty, lived lives as a poor person, lived life as moderately wealthy, successful. And each time I come back, I live in a different life, but obtain and the experiences of the last and compare it over and over again. And that's what happens in my dreams sometimes. So it's like, oh, this time I'm going to wake up in this body and I'm going to be in this economic class and I'm going to be experiencing these types of things. And sometimes I sit back and I wonder to myself, could it possibly be true? And then when we have certain phenomenon like this, where it literally feels as though we don't fit in anywhere here. But I feel as though people who are like us, who are deeply concerned about the well-being of our country, also feel the same. Like we no longer belong here. Like something has happened. Like people could not have gone this batshit insane this quickly. Like, there has to be something else at play here, is what I imagine that somebody would say to themselves. Something else has to be at play here.
Yeah. Well, I do. I definitely do. And I had this even back then. I had the intuition that, and that's the thing with having an intuition is just, something, but you really don't know how or why, but you just know. It's not based on any evidence. It's very right brain thinking. You just sense it. It's like something happened. Something happened in 2016, but more so, this was 2020. Something changed with the planet.
It's like
It's like I sensed a change.
it's like you sense a disturbance in the force.
Yeah. Well, the force is basically real. The force is just consciousness.
Yes, but it's and quite literally, I think I felt the same thing in 2016. As I had a sigh of relief on election night in 2016. I don't know where that sigh came from, but I felt a shift in the universe as I felt as though, okay, now we're in the long haul and this is a make or break situation. And then 2020 happened. And then I had a sense of dread come upon me as the universe began shifting again. And my mind immediately went to, okay, God is going to allow them to destroy this country in order to rebuild it.
It's something that I think I sense because I usually have a pretty good sense of like where the zeitgeist is at as a whole, where the time spirit, like where humanity, where we are, especially in this country, but even worldwide. I feel like I usually have a pretty good sense of what it is and what's in it. And something changed with the national, but the global consciousness. And obviously, I can't tell you anything specific. I just feel it. But something is coming. I know something is coming very soon, and I just don't know what it is.
I sense it
Keep
even now.
guessing.
I have a major feeling of dread in my gut right now. It's a feeling of dread, but it's also a feeling of wonder
Yeah.
and almost a feeling of relief. But that relief is tucked behind my heart, very deep. It's almost as though I can feel somebody pulling it out of my stomach. Even right now, as we speak about these things, I feel a great unease.
Honestly, really, this is what my intuition tells me. It could be wrong, but I have a feeling that we will be. This is just what I feel. It's not what I think or hope, but I feel that we will be rebuilding from the rubble. I don't think we're going to have a retirement plan. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just missensing this, but that's what I really feel like is going to happen.
I have the same portentous prophecy as you do, because I see this world in ashes before the end of our lives. And I feel as though for the remainder of our life, we will be planting seeds of hope and integrity within the next generation that they might do better than ours. That's what I feel. That's what I feel in my heart of hearts. That yes, there will be no retirement for us. There will be no end to the work for us. We will have to work constantly. And I don't mean just physical labor, but what we will have to work ceaselessly on cultivating a new generation that will be able to rebuild what we could not. And that's sort of what I feel.
Yeah. Well, I think we
You're gonna have to repeat that. You're
definitely
Yo.
I think we're pretty much connections unstable again. It's time. I think we've pretty much got to the end here.
Yes. As per usual, I'd like to finish off on something of uplifting spirit, and don't really see anything.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Take your time. Okay. Let's see if we can find something that is positive. Okay, let's see. I know. Let's see here. And we'll cover this one. When Rhett returns, I got a good story for you guys. This is probably going to be one of my favorite stories. And so I found a very nice story for us to end on. This one is probably going to be one of my favorite stories that we've ended on since we've done these. Dinosaur tracks have been revealed in Texas as a river has dried up due to the droughts. It appears that this tracks belong to an Acrocanthosaurus, which is a species of sauropod dinosaur. No, Acrocanthosaurus is actually a species of theropod dinosaur, but we also have species from a Sauroposeidon. So it looks as though they're saying that these tracks of the Acrocanthosaurus would have shown the dinosaur to have stood approximately at 15 feet in height and being about a 7-ton creature. Doesn't say how long they believe the creature was, but for Acrocanthosaurus, um, 15 feet seems a bit tall for Acrocanthosaurus. Acrocanthosaurus was not taller than the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and Tyrannosaurus Rex stood at approximately 13 feet to 15 feet at the hip. Acrocanthosaurus is a smaller Carcharodontosaurid type dinosaur. And so I would imagine that it would have had to have stood probably no more than maybe 10, 12 feet at the hip. And they said the creature weighed about 7 tons, which would be inaccurate of an Acrocanthosaurus, because again, as far as large theropod dinosaurs go, Acrocanthosaurus was much more slimly built and would not weigh in at the same weight ranges as a Tyrannosaurus. Uh, so, what do you think of
Same
that?
in Glen Rose. I've been there before.
What do you think of that find? They say the
I've
river
been there.
dried
I
up.
mean, there's already plenty of tracks there. I've been there before at that park in Glen Rose, Texas. There's already like tracks everywhere there. So
You
I
know,
was like, really? And like, I thought they already knew there was. I didn't know. I mean, I know it was new ones, but there's tons of tracks there.
so they say these date back to about 113 million years ago. Um, this is interesting to me because, as you know, the United States, and this spits in the face of the global warming people. The United States, the central part of the United States, used to be underwater completely, almost. Up into the mountains used to be underwater. We're part of this was part of the Atlantic Ocean at one point. Actually, it was a different ocean, but it connected to the Atlantic Ocean. And huge swaths of the United States was just covered in water. And the only reason why we're able to see these tracks be well preserved is because of,
Yeah, in the Great Salt Lake, like left over from that.
yes, Great Salt Lakes are left over from that. Um, many of our rivers are left over from that. Most of our rivers now get their fresh water from reservoirs that connect to the Arctic. And even then, much of the Arctic did not exist uh, at the time in which these tracks would have been formed. Much of the Arctic did not exist. It was very small. Antarctica had not yet even been formed.
I worked a shutdown out there close to Salt Lake City once, and I had to drive through the salt flats between I don't remember what they're called, the salt flats that are between in Wendover, West Wendover, Utah. I mean West Wendover, Nevada. Well, it's on the state line, so there's two of them. And 60 miles outside of Salt Lake City, I drove through the salt flats every morning at sunrise, and it was beautiful. And then the Salt Lake, there's just one little narrow interstate highway, or no, it was actually just a highway that just on both sides of the Salt Lake, in the banks of the Salt Lake, there's just like so much salt crystals everywhere.
You know, I really wish that people would do the due diligence to go back and just take a look at the amazing history of this planet, amazing history of this nation, and to try to talk about global warming now after you see, I mean, when we were literally underwater at one point, and I'm pretty sure you know at one point that the United States did not receive was not the most populous area for tornadoes in the world. That used to be South Africa. The United States was not the most populous place to be hit by hurricanes. That also used to be in Western Africa and upwards towards India, of course, around Tibet. But something happened some millions of years ago, which shifted the magnetic field of of the world, and the
Polar
storms then,
shift.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
storms then started to go across the Atlantic instead of going across the continent of Africa and Asia. And so now we start to receive over 70% of all tornadoes in the world happen right here in the Great Plains of the United States.
You know,
More
some
than
people think that we're due for another polar shift here soon
more,
because the North Pole has been shifting much more rapidly over the past decade, back and forth between Canada and Russia. And
I mean,
who knows?
I mean, face it, the way the Great Lakes were formed was because the Mississippi used to run upstream. We you talk about just how massive things are, and then there's also how we have influenced uh the river paths. They're talking about, the drought from the Colorado. I know we talked about this last time, but the drought of the Colorado was formed because we dammed up the river. The Grand Canyon was never supposed to be what it looks like now. The Grand Canyon used to be filled with water. That's the reason why the Grand Canyon is probably, other than the Badlands and of Montana and some areas in Texas, probably the best place in the world to go look for fossils, especially fossils of early marine life, because it was completely underwater. It was basically a Mariana Trench of sorts for several kilometers in length. And we blocked that off with dammings, and then we blame global warming. And you can't blame global warming if we're the ones that did it. And you take a look at the desert that formed on the opposite side of the Himalayas. That desert formed there because we
Atacama,
yeah,
driest place on earth.
yes. It used to be one of the wettest places on earth, but after a series of earthquakes and the polar shifts, storm clouds can no longer pass through the Himalayas in order to get over there. So no rain ever comes over there. So you go to the other side of the Himalayas, or just on the opposite side of that desert, it's one of the most lush
Wait, the
rainforests in the world.
Himalayas? I
Yeah,
thought, never mind. Okay, never mind. The Atacama's on the other side of the Andes in South America. That's the driest place in the world. You're probably talking about the Gobi Desert,
yeah. It's right on the other
in
side of
Mongolia and China, and
yeah, right on the other side of Tibet.
yeah, that's the Gobi Desert.
And so you look right there in that little area in front of the Himalayas, right there by Tibet, one of the most beautiful, luscious rainforests that you will ever find. Looks like something that hasn't been touched in millions of years. Probably hasn't been touched in millions of years until we go over there and start cultivating things. As inevitable as things do happen. But that's all because of the natural phenomenon of the earth. You can't blame any type of global warming for that. It's just what happens. The earth has been
Yeah,
around a long time.
if you look at the geological history, most changes in climate happen rapidly due to cataclysmic events. It's not, it's stuff changes over time, but most of the major changes have been due to global floods, which are caused by meteorites or
Yeah,
just catastrophic events.
super volcanic eruptions. So there was a volcanic explosion. As I told you before, it was around the time of the Black Plague. There was a volcanic eruption that caused the Great Cold, the Great Winter, as they called it, if I remember correctly, and it lasted for, I think, 3 years, where we were basically in a nuclear winter for 3 years.
You know, this is what, so the last time we came close to, last time we had a major event like that, as far as the species goes, was the Black Death. And that was about 10% of the population of the earth that died, a third of Europe's population. I think that whatever is coming, it's not going to wipe us out, but it's going to change the world and humanity as we know it, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
you know, I I don't want to make predictions, but because of the population size of the world, I think it has to be close to a billion, maybe more, maybe a billion, maybe billion point two.
Yeah. Well, before we get into doomsday speculation again, we should probably wrap it up because we're supposed to be ending this on a positive note.
Yes, I was about to say that you're a bummer for positive notes. I'm talking about dinosaurs here, my favorite topic in the
Well,
world.
you know what? The dinosaurs didn't have a space program, so they died.
Well, actually, according to some of alien theorists, dinosaurs they didn't die. They left.
Oh yeah. Well,
They
you know what? At this point, if we discovered that, I would actually not, I'd be intrigued, not surprised.
I would be intrigued too.
Or
You
they
know,
just evolved and now they're the reptilians and they're ruling the
uh,
world.
there's also people that say that they actually live inside the planet now.
So they did that. So they were nice enough to let the mammals make it.
Yeah, they decided to go and the holes on the four poles of the earth. They went inside. They live inside the hollow earth, and that's where they have their massive utopian civilization right beneath us.
That's their spacecraft we see going in and out of the water.
Yes,
And so basically what they did is they were like, you know what?
it's hot
Let's
up
go in
here.
here. Let's see what happens with them shrews on the top. Let's see
Yeah,
what happened with them. Bam! Now they have their own civilization, and now they're hiding from us because they're
yeah.
scared of us.
No, you know what they're doing. They're not hiding. They're saying, you know what? Let's bide our time. Dinosaurs will rule the earth again. Well, let's just give them a little bit more time, and then we'll go up and eat all of them. They're
We'll
they're
just
they're
go.
they're
They'll pop up
farming
and
us.
scare us like boo. Oh god, it's a
But you,
T-Rex.
but one of my favorite dinosaur fossil theories comes from ancient China, which says that the reason why there are fossils is because that there were dragons that wanted desperately to enter into the heavens, but they were forbidden, and so they flew up into the clouds trying to get in heavens, but God closed the gates of heaven before them, and they crashed into the gates and fell down into the earth, and there they died, and their bones became the fossils.
You know, it's not a bad theory for the time.
That's one of my favorite ones. But
Well,
anyway,
obviously, the world was. You know how there's the fictional narrative or motif of disenchantment, like magic is gone from the world. Nobody believes in magic anymore. You'll see that in a lot of fiction. Well, that's just, that's an allegory for our time. We're in the era of disenchantment. Magic is gone from the world. Nobody believes in, still a lot of people believe in the spirit and God and all that, but it is an allegory for our time. We do live in disenchanted times. As a result, things have become nihilistic and all this. And the nihilism is what leads to the fictional narrative of the zombie apocalypse, which is also an allegory for our time. People
this
without souls, people that just roam the earth looking to consume each other,
yeah,
consume whatever they.
that is a very good analogy to what we see in our present systems, because people do seem to be soulless drones. And what used to be the saving grace of our time was imagination, where you could escape into a comic book or a fanciful tale of fiction and adventure. But now that has been robbed of us as well.
That's what I'm saying. Like you know, even if we try to get rid of those, if we like religion, for example, we try to get rid of all these archetypal stories, they start popping up in our fiction. They start popping up in our movies everywhere. You can't get rid of this stuff. It's the collective unconscious manifesting itself through stories, which is what it's always done. But disenchantment leads to zombie hordes, the monster of the mass, as opposed to the vampire being the monster of aristocracy. That's what the time we live in. I think I sent you a video about that. I don't know if you remember it or not, but it perfectly explains what I'm talking about. I'll send it to you again. But I think we're
We
done.
have we have gone past our time. Um, Well, I mean, past our time. It's my show. I can go as long as I want. But anywho, this has been the story of America, SA News. I know we got a little track from the news, but there were more stories to talk about. But I didn't want to get into all of the stuff of that. This is really a time for me to rant, for us to rant about the affairs of what's going on right now, about the how bad things are. And I know it comes off that we talk a lot of gloom and doom, but this is not gloom and this is not doom. This is the reality of the fact of where we are, and you need to be made aware of it so that you know what your duty is if you want to see our country survive, if you want to see prosperity for your family be ensured. You have to be made aware of these things. And that's the reason why we continue to do it. That's the reason why we don't sugarcoat the possibilities of the potential horror that we will possibly be able to see. That's the reason why we do all of this, so that we understand what our duty is. And it does not mean that you have to vote the same way that we vote. What it does mean is that you need to awaken to the reasons why you vote and make sure that you are voting for the correct reasons and the correct policies. No longer should people be concerned about their political leanings based off of party and ideology, but instead you should be based upon and should have always been based upon whether or not government will be good enough for you and your family and will no longer allow you to shoulder the burden of somebody else. Our history, our governments, our success as a nation, our success as a surviving civilization depends on our realization that the world is derived of trade-offs and nothing else. Take what you can that is good and acknowledge what is bad and cannot be changed, and try to limit what is bad from corrupting what is good. And we hope that in our telling of these particular stories and the commentary that we give, that you will be able to understand this and understand again your duty to yourself, to your family, and to your fellow countrymen. And with that, I ask that you follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, like, share our content, follow us on or listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere that you can find us. The Story of America with Payson Williams, The Story of America, PW. And we will see you guys next time. All right. Now you can go. I'm going to continue to rant here. I'm still live streaming this, give the people some more content from my live stream and stuff. But you're free to go.
I'm free to go. Huh?
Yes, you're free to go. You're my hostage. But I don't know if you ever do live streams like this, Rhett, but I do them sometimes when I rant. I don't even I probably said this multiple times. I don't know if you've watched some of the earlier episodes, but I think like episode 3, I just went on a full rant for the entire episode. I was yelling into the microphone. I was cursing up a storm. I labeled
Yeah,
I,
I'm not all. I don't think I want to do that.
I labeled it explicit. I was like, but at the time, I think that episode 3 came out right after the election, I think. So I was hot. I was furious with the state of affairs that we were in.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was strung out at that time. I was on meth. Like I was been up for days. Like every like 3 or 4 days, I might sleep.
You were probably in a better place than I was at
I
that
still
point, man.
voted though. I still voted.
So if a strung out meth head can vote, what's stopping all of you from getting out there and voting for the right stuff?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if anything, you would have had a reason to vote for Joe Biden, considering that
didn't I voted for Trump, dude?
consider that
I was just,
he'll make all the drugs legal so that his son won't get put in jail.
Yeah, he hasn't even made weed legal yet. So, I have nothing
Well,
good to say about Joe at all. Anyway, I'm out of here.
you have a good one, my friend. I'm going to continue ranting for a little while. And so, as I said earlier, you guys, the cost of living has become outrageous. It's become unreal. And so now that the cameras is off and done recording, you know, I give you guys some bonus material and all that stuff. I get to stop being so polite. And I want to know, and you guys can post this in the comments, you can send it to me in a message or whatever. I want to know how many of you people even care about what's going on here. How many of you people even care that you're going to force yourself upon somebody else? And that's the politest way that I can put it. How many of you people even care that you're going to make somebody who's already worked and paid off their loans to work and pay off their loan all over again? How many of you even care that you are about to cause the prices of everything that we enjoy to become unpurchasable for average everyday Americans? I don't receive financial assistance like a lot of you people do. I'm a single man, Black. I work, make an okay living. But yet I don't qualify for it because the government is not designed to benefit single men, particularly single Black men. It's designed to ensure that single Black women with children suckle off of the government's titty for the rest of their lives. So it's harmful to people like me. It's harmful to people in the same economic class as I am. It's harmful for people who aren't in the same economic class as I am. Everything has gotten more expensive. If it costs me, a single man, $700 to buy groceries every month, I can't imagine what it costs for a family of three, for a family of 4 or 5. You want to talk about low birth rates while you continue to disincentivize people having children. So your solution is to continue to import them. I mean, what is wrong with you people? A lot of you are friends and family, and you're batshit crazy. You're insane if you support any of the crap that's happening in Washington right now. I grew up believing that most of you were the wisest people that I knew. However, as I began to get older, before I even crossed into middle school, I was made aware that I was smarter and wiser than all of you. Because I dared to follow my own beliefs rather than following what everybody told me was best for me. There are some things which we pass down, which force ourselves in the situations that we are economically over and over and over again. We are forcing ourselves into absolute despotism and tyranny. We are forcing ourselves into debt. We are forcing ourselves into poverty because we pass down over and over again the worst characteristics of our culture. And then we complain when the wealthy continue to remain as they are while we continue to remain poor. When the wealthy are passing down the best characteristics of their culture, and we pass down the worst. We pass down disrespectful behavior. We champion criminality. We champion murderers and drug dealers in our music in our television, at our very churches. We celebrate drag queens and a whole bunch of unholy abominations. And yet many of you still call yourself Christians. I am not above any of you as far as being a Christian, and it's not my place to judge anyone's claim to Christianity. But you cannot claim to love God and turn your eye on the abhorrent things that you see. And you cannot claim to love your brother when you vote for things that destroy him. I have not seen in my generation, at least my generation as an adult, I have not seen any move to make things better. I've only seen things to be made worse. You force elevated education upon people who don't want it. They go in it and they do it for the money. You force people out of business, out of work, because the job that they have is something that you don't approve of. All the while, you are championing and trying to get prostitution legalized. All the while, you are championing drug criminals that have poisoned our streets with drugs. And then you blame it on the white man, you blame it on government, as if they forced you to consume such toxic extremities into your body. Yes, government is to blame for many things that we face, but the vast majority of things that we face now is completely of our own free will and volition. It is because of you, your choices, that we live now in the most miserable times in our nation's history. The death and bloodshed and misery and debt and suffering that your choices, that your decisions have wrought upon us all will be the greatest in human history. And unlike most significant tragedies, it will not be by natural occurrence, but instead by natural selection of the humankind. Darwinism at its best, survival of the fittest. If you can't produce on your own, you will perish without fall. And this is true of everything that we have here. If you can't produce grain, if you can't produce vegetables, if you don't know how to make flour, if you don't know how to make your own clothing, if you don't know any skills or any trades, then you better start learning something right now, because the time ahead is going to be so important for those who still know how to do for themselves, that those of you who don't, well, there's a good chance that you might not make it through it. And that's not hyperbole. That is literally the plan, as we have seen it of their own voices when we played the video for you here last week or the week before last. Now, I do not claim to know everything, and I do not claim to be correct on everything. But so far in my study and in what I have reviewed, I have yet to be proven wrong by anything that I have said. And so I hope that I am wrong, but so that I am not. I would encourage you all to take with confidence what I am saying to be truth and start to prepare for the worst. And the best way to prepare for the worst is to protect against the worst. With your vote, you must start to use your wisdom. You must stop using your feelings. You need to start using knowledge and logic and reason. We are the thin line that is holding off the total collapse of Western civilization. And to those of you who believe that the motherland civilization is better, oh, how sorely mistaken you are. As the motherland, without the intervention of Western civilization, well, they would have went extinct a long time ago. Just as the Aztecs and Maya and Inca went before them. And the Maya and Aztecs had even better senses of cultivation and agriculture than the motherland. And yet, their infighting and disease and sacrifice, and the fact that they over-cultivated the land and made it infertile in order to produce grain and other vegetation, well, they wiped themselves out. And now only exist in remnants of inbreeds at a mixed race of the Spanish conquerors. We cannot survive the dissolution of this nation. But dissolution is surely coming to us, and it's coming to us at a speed at which none of us could brace for. It is inevitable. It will hit us like a meteor, and it will smash upon us the reality of great tragedy that we have right now. And nobody seems to be preparing for it. You know, people say, well, to prepare, we should prepare for civil war. No. Yes, you want to make sure that you are protected, but that is not the preparation that one should seek in these times. The preparation that we need, the preparation that we want, is the preservation of this union. And the only way to do that is to reclaim our rights as Americans from government. Our Constitution is written in such a way that we and we alone, the people of this body of the United States of America, can at any time reclaim the land through our vote, through our voice. This does not mean that you must vote Republican. What it means, however, is that you must vote for your best interests and the best interests of this nation. And to do anything other is to vote for the damnation of us all. And I think I will stop there because I have to use the restroom. But I hope that you will take my words into consideration, because we do not have any time left to try to figure this out. We've run out of time. We've been kicking the can down the road for so long. Now it's time to finally pay up what we promised. We have to fix this. We have to fix the problem. We can no longer push it off on another generation. This must end with us, one way or the other. It will either end with the dissolution and the destruction of disunion and Western civilization, or it will end of us rebuilding the Sons of Liberty all over again within this great nation and continuing the experiment of liberty within the world of humanity. And that's the only thing that is before us. We don't have any other solutions. We don't have any other options. This is all we have. And so we have to make sure that we do whatever is necessary in order to maintain this nation. Of that, I will see you guys the next time.